Let me start by giving a shout out to Passport OG and to the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Hurricane Edward Allen Anderson of the New Greater Zion Valley, Precious Lamb. Oh Lord, hold my mule while I shout. Monument Mountain of Hope Faith Tabernacle on a hillside in the countryside in the morning time. Temple of We Don't Tolerate No Misandry Incorporated. Now, I tease him about the name because he does kind of sound like a preacher against misandry, but I mean it when I say shout out to him and to Passport OG. That's not a sneak diss. That's for real. Shouts out to them. They both do a pretty good job of putting together in words the intellectual keys that we need and the intellectual asset that we need to both unlock the locks and to eat solid through the chains that bind us to the gynocentric and misandric way of thinking that is the nigger community. The black community is no longer the nigger community because black men now have these tools. And the moral and mental framework to maintain this is actually in both authenticated ahadith, authenticated ones, and in the Quran itself. Old Testament and New Testament has bits of wisdom that you may use, but if you want to know what is actually revealed and that which is doubtful, you would still probably have to get to the Quran as a filter. This is why I said that I was sitting on the solution. But we do have our chains on our minds if we don't break them. And you don't have to be stupid to be brainwashed. And this is something that many of us have thought about before. You can be intelligent and be very brainwashed simply because you did not question where you were brainwashed. You did not know to do so because you were focused on something else about which somebody could not come along and brainwash you. That about which you are truly an expert is the same subject about which someone cannot come along and brainwash you. But that about which you are not an expert is where someone can come along and brainwash you. It is for this reason that I will say to you, black men, do not ever listen to someone that tells you not to pay attention to what these women are looking for, what they want, what they seek. If someone comes along and tells you not to obsess about it, you listen to them. That's wisdom. If someone comes along and tells you not to think about it, not to worry about it, especially if they say that it's because of the money or the income that you don't have, that's when you know somebody is going to serve the interest of the gynocracy, whether they mean to do so or not. It doesn't matter their intention. They serve it because it is ladies who benefit from telling you that you should not have them on their mind until you have the money they want. They would love for you to disqualify yourself because of the money you do not have. This way they can come along later and turn around and qualify you anyway when it suits them to do so. And you'll think, well, hey, I was given an exemption. I was given a pass. Why not take it? No, there is no person on this planet. There's no woman that deserves to be immune to poverty any more than there is a man that deserves to be immune to it. And since men must work to attain the skills that would make them immune to poverty and still probably would not do so, there is not a lady on this planet that deserves immunity to poverty. We hate poverty for men or women. But if a woman deserves immunity to poverty, it probably would have been Khadija. May Allah be pleased with her, who first married Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And God did not make her immune to poverty even after he made her wealthy. It was never a guarantee. She died toothless and fighting off illnesses that she could not successfully fight off because she was being starved out like the rest of the Muslims were. Despite her previous wealth, she had lost all of her wealth to support righteousness, to not only support her husband's cause, but to support righteousness. He wasn't even trying to drain her wealth. That wasn't him that did it. It was the enemies that did, because they came with the boycotts. They would not let them eat. They would not sell food to them, and they would not buy anything from them. They would block their caravans if they went to trade anywhere. That's what they did. College and university are largely pursued so that you at least qualify yourself for something better than poverty. I'm going to tell you that unfortunately, that doesn't always work that way. And where I live, which is supposed to be a bastion of righteousness amongst human beings, even by Muslim standards, it's not always like that when it comes to the job market. I have students, and they've been good students, and they have become not only fluently bilingual, but they've also become good in other specialties on top of that. And they look for years and they don't find jobs. And then I find other people who are crap. They're pieces of S. They should not have been in any position that paid them anything comfortable. And there they are in these positions, and they wouldn't hire a good, deserving candidate for a job if they were presented with one. If they interview someone and find he's a good and qualified candidate for a good job, they don't want to give him that job because he's going to show up the ones that hired him. They want to give somebody like themselves a job, a no good rat bastard Shisa Pitt who cheated his father-mucking way through high school, university, and grad school and PhD if he has those degrees. There are deans of departments where I work right now that are going to professors. The deans have PhDs. They're going to professors with master's degrees or PhDs in other fields and saying, listen, I want you to write my dissertation for me. And these professors are thinking, I'll lose my job if I don't do what this dean says. And there's a part of me that says, no, you go to them and you say, I'm not doing this. And not only that, you keep the records where they ask you to do that. You get the audio proof, or you keep the email if they were dumb enough to send that to you. You get into a discussion with them about doing this sort of thing, and you have that recorded, and then you present that to the Nazaha and go to them and say, I'm about to tell this guy that I'm not going to do this. It's corrupt, it's wrong, and I want you to protect me from losing my job for this. And they have an investigation ongoing. And if you lose your job, guess what? They move in. And you've got the proof. They said something about this at this time. Maybe you didn't have that recorded, but then you talked to them about it this other time. You had that recorded. You recorded also when you informed them you were not going to be doing this. And then later they send you an email saying your services are no longer required. The dates match up, and then you get your job back because the Nazaha gets in touch with the institution and says, we got an investigation. This particular dean that fired him, no good. Hire this man. That's what happens. Colleges and universities now, and I work at one, colleges and universities now oftentimes wind up being some sort of scam because of both the financial interest of the institutions and the misunderstandings people have of what education truly is. It is really not worth it to go and pay extra just for a name behind a degree. It is worth it to pay extra if there are a bunch of other things that come with this, such as the room and board, if the food is included. You understand? These sorts of things, they may be worth it to pay extra if they really do extra to weed out. See, my university is expensive. I'm well paid. I'm not rich, but I'm paid enough. And not only that, but I'm paid on time. And when I did my job and all of my students last semester failed, and I turned in the results with the proof in black and white, literally, on a platform called Blackboard, and I simply turned the results in, they failed. And I wasn't even the one to do all of the assessments. Then what wound up being the case was that I got supported because I didn't just arbitrarily say, well, they failed because their English is bad. I could show where I had taught this, that, and the other, and they turned around and did not fix any of the mistakes I taught them. They repeated the mistakes, and these were mistakes that were at a foundational level. They should not have even been an intermediate before me, before they met me as their advanced teacher, and they were there. So what I showed not only proved that they failed my course, all of them, but that they weren't supposed to be in the level before they got to my course, and that they were supposed to still be 2 levels behind at the beginner level. And my university, my bosses, they supported me against them. And when one of the students wrote to the president, I think, and he said, listen, I am not blaming the professor. Instructor Black did what he was supposed to do. He actually did come in and teach the lessons. The students were lying when they said he didn't do that. I was there. He did do that. But the students that said he was not teaching were the same ones that interrupted, they disrupted, they were trying to practice conversation, so to speak, but they did not fix any mistakes, and they would do anything to keep him off of the task of teaching, and he still taught. But they also cheated. They ran distractions. They did everything to disrupt. Every time he said that there was a particular, every time he said this is a limit, this is what we don't do. Every time he told us something ahead of time, like any kind of walaikum salam, sir. So when they came into well, he wrote this letter and he explained this, and he said to the university, I'm not asking you all to give me the grade for free. I'm asking you to waive my fee when I repeat the class because I need to repeat it. I need to learn more. I need more time to remove certain mistakes. I just need y'all to save me the money because it wasn't my fault to fail. Well, it wasn't my fault that anyone failed the last one. But there were just certain students that didn't let everybody learn. Oh, they asked all the questions, but they were doing it so others couldn't. You'll know these students because they also failed algebra, which had nothing to do with Instructor Black. So understand that what I'm getting at is in universities, I'm lucky, but my university is expensive. And since they do their job and they pay me and they support me and they're just with me and they're fair with me, when I go into the university, I understand how much of a scam it's been in the United States. And I refuse to pay homage to this idea that it has to be. And what I do is I go in and I say, look, I was paid well, so I'm going to do my job well. I'm not only going to explain to you advanced English, I'm going to show you ways to make English easy. I'm going to show you ways that you can improve in it even when you don't have a teacher anymore if you do what I say. If you do what I say now as your last English teacher, you will be able to improve in it slowly, but still improve in it over time, naturally and easily. If you keep on going and you don't even have another English instructor, you will be bilingual and you will be better in your bilingualism as time goes on if you do what I tell you. That's what my program is designed to do. I go in and I have, over the years, I have worked to make sure that it is like this because I was generally paid on time. And now I'm paid better and I'm like, okay, it's more worth it. So I go with even more of a focus on this. And I utilize technology more and more and more each year. And I do this for a reason. And what I'm going to get you guys to understand is that I'm not willing to pay a homage to the idea that it has to be a scam. I'm not willing to play a part in it being a scam anymore. But understand, where you live, I don't teach. And you already know the language that I teach. Although some of you write like crap in that language, I'm talking some of you in my audience who agree with me and agree with the manosphere's knowledge, the Black manosphere's knowledge, and agree about red pill awareness, and you don't fall for the misandry. Some of you very intelligent, but you write like you're retarded. And I'll tell you, if we philosophically agree, if we theologically agree, that's great. But if you write like you were literate, you cannot use your writing to convince anyone of anything. And you know that you need that, and you know you got to practice that, and you're going to have to take a course from someone that can teach it to you. You can look it up yourself and practice bit by bit. You can have someone walk you through it, and you go through it even more quickly. But that's what the work it's going to take. But when it comes to this notion that it is a scam, well, over there where you are, ain't no Instructor Black that's going to sit up and tell you how to make it not a scam, how to make it worthwhile. I won't teach for free. I won't even do it for cheap. But I don't think that you should waste all your money on an education that's really only designed to keep you so busy that you don't actually learn the things in life that you need. That's why I'm not willing to go and tell you, hey, listen, you got to go to university or college. You have to look at what it is that you need to learn. Look at what it is that you want to do, and then you determine if you need to go, and then, if so, to which university or college. That's how you do that. I want you to also have a Black experience in your higher education. It's not about how well you can do the electric slide. I don't give a guck about that. I care about you being able to understand that in a world that tells you you are inferior, mainly in a nation that tells you you are inferior, in which you had to grow up, that you're really the same as anyone else. And that oftentimes when our universities are not doing as well, it is because of lesser funding. And sometimes if the university has been plagued by a nasty reputation, the way that Morris Brown was, then it becomes plagued even by the staff and faculty, because when the reputation gets bad, guess who applies to it? People who meet that reputation, people who are going to make the stereotype true, they apply. And then before you know it, the university can't even attract quality staff because they ain't got nothing but nigger students. Morris Brown suffered that. And you know what happened to them. The rumor was that Morris Brown was an open admissions college, that if you pretty much graduated high school, you qualified to go. You just had to apply by a certain date, and that was it. And then show that you could pay the money. That was the rumor. It wasn't true. But since the only people who applied there were the ones who believed that rumor and therefore qualified only just barely under those conditions, Morris Brown did not have a better pool of applicants from which to choose. Same thing happened in my alma mater, Morehouse. The notion that it was a haven for booty bandits, or even if you weren't the bandit type, just, a guy that doesn't like women, led to higher application rates from guys that were not interested in women. And then there were guys who were straight, but they just had effeminate ways, and they began to apply because they knew that their ways were effeminate. They knew they weren't the most macho dudes out there, and so they began to apply. And it got to a point where even if they never made up 50% of the student population, the fact remains that a president had to make a speech about these guys wearing dresses at one of the graduations to put a stop to it. It led to an atmosphere in which freshman guys coming in that were not interested in men were on guard. And one was beaten with a bat. I don't remember if he died or if he was just injured, but one guy opened the shower curtain on another dude and had taken a shower, and he wound up being beaten. Because you got dudes there who have been intelligent, they've been smart their whole lives, and ain't no sister ever approached them unless maybe it's a sister that looks like a man, her mother cuss word self. That happens, especially in these little small country towns. And these dudes come up never having experienced being had a pass made at them by an actual attractive sister that's worth something. And then a dude opens up a shower curtain on them because he's looking for another dude. They flip out. That can happen. Some people say, why are these young men so mad? You notice those young men that are really mad, they straight. And what is it bothers them? Well, they got dudes approaching them, but not chicks. That's one of the things. But when you get to the academic side of college, well, it's expensive, and your parents get these big old bills to pay for the tuition. If you can't pay, you don't go. But you got all this academic work to do. And what I tell my students is, I don't want you overworking yourself. I'm giving you work that is designed not to overwork you unless you wait till late to start. But it is designed so that you actually get better at something that will help you make money. So yeah, I'm going to give you some work, but it's going to be bit by bit by bit by bit. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you a medium amount in the beginning, and it will decrease over time if you do it now, you start now. Why? Because they done already paid. They can't pay for a degree. I can't sell them a degree. They can't pay for grades, and I can't sell them grades. But I can factor in this. They paid for an education. They paid for knowledge, and practice is a part of that. So I will take the money that I am paid by the university, and I'm not going to overwork them because they done already paid. I'm going to work them as much as is necessary in a way that will make it as easy as possible for them because they done already paid. So I want it to be worth their money. How is it that I don't overwork them since they already paid, but also don't waste the money that their dads paid? I've had years to think about it. I came with this, but I want you to also remember that you are not in an environment where many of the professors have even had time to sit down and think about this. They ain't had time to. Ain't no one told them to ever question, why does your dad have to pay an institution to give you a whole lot of work to do and then sit back and tell you that you didn't do it well enough? That's a loss. And that's part of why it is that I say that educational institutions are going to have to restart from the ground up in terms of how they design themselves. What's the reason that they should be that doggone expensive if they can't guarantee you that you are going to be able to make something with their degree later on? What's that about? Why should they charge you all that? If they have to, they have to, but that means that they ain't running things efficiently enough. So I take this expensive education that my students' dads bought for them, and I say, I'm going to present it to you in a way where you do work, but it's only because it's necessary, and it'll be easy over time if you start now in the middle. I'm not even going to overwork you. Just do this medium amount right now because it will be hard in the beginning, but it will get easier even by the third week if you do it enough times. But don't play with me. I've had to tell some of my students, listen, you are the one that is not showing up for class. I know your parents paid. They paid the same thing everyone else did, and you ain't getting your money back past a certain date. You need to start showing up or I'm going to drop your butt, because at this point, you either going to pay and you're going to be dropped, but you can take the class again, or you're going to pay for an F. And then you don't have but one more chance instead of two. Those are the two options that you done already paid now. And then you determine that these are going to be the two options for which you paid because we passed that point. That's what you got going on. And I've been telling my students, I've been saying to them before, don't play with me. And don't play with your dad's money. I won't waste your dad's money, but if you waste it, you're going to go into your dad and tell him you wasted it. And speaking Arabic during my English class is one possible way you can waste your dad's money, because I will fail you. And I got a right to do that. Some people say they want to turn it into this accusation of discrimination. I don't have to respect the so-called right to speak Arabic. They don't have a right to speak Arabic during my English class. It's an English class. Get your butt in there and speak some African. I'm joking. Speak some English. But when these sisters sit up here and brag about how they got into college, they are sitting up and bragging to you with all that pro-blackism they talk. They're bragging to you about how they are managing to get into a failing educational system designed by the colonial masters to take money but not educate well enough for you to even make that money back later on. They done come out with all this debt. Then they got consumer debt they're going to pile on top of that, because they're not going to do all this work academically just to turn around and then not have nothing to show for it, materially. And I don't blame them. You bust your butt in these colleges and universities, whether you're a man or a woman, you bust your behind. But if you're a man, it's going to be more. Because ain't no professor about to sit up and pass you just because they like you. You can't jiggle a little titty and then the professor turn around and say, and I'm going to go easy on you. You can't do that. You ain't got no titties to jiggle. And if I was one of them low down professors, I'd be like, you can't just jiggle him in front of me. No, you're going to take everything off. If I was going to be one of those that didn't have those kind of scruples, why settle for a little jiggling in the tees? No, take it all off and I'm going to spray your cervix. Otherwise, it ain't worth it for me to give you a grade. You ain't going to pay me for this grade, so you can pay in other ways. And even then, I got to stop and think, well, if I'm really going to put in a hell of a performance, then isn't that payment to her? So what I look like giving her an OG and a grade she wants. That's just me reaffirming that my junk carries a negative value. That don't mean she's normal. That means she ain't hetero enough if she can't understand why my junk can't carry a negative value. Who paid for them toys she got at home? They cost some kind of money. How they worth money? But I got to pay money to use mine, and it's real. F out of here. So you a straight man, you don't even have the same advantage. You still gonna go through it worse, and it ain't easy for nobody. And you bust your butt studying academic rigor, and not all of it, as a matter of fact, much of it does not actually help you in terms of anything in life that you're gonna really do. I didn't have to take a statistics class in Morehouse because it was going to help me in my major. I had to take a statistics class in Morehouse because it was difficult and it was a way to weed students out while still making money from them. I didn't have to take, business policy with the infamous Dr. Mormon because it was going to make me better at anything. Now, it allowed me to practice a skill that I already learned somewhere else, but I could have practiced that skill without his class. Without his class, I could have practiced that skill. That was done so that people could become scared that they're not going to graduate, therefore driving up the value of the degree. Well, that wasn't based on self-discipline. It was based partially on luck. If you didn't have self-discipline, you weren't going to have the luck to pass. But if you had it, you still needed luck to pass. You still had to have the right teammates. If you didn't have the right teammates, you were just SOL. I was fortunate, and my teammate on whom we had to rely to take the first step was consistently late. That ninja couldn't be on time for nothing. I just nicknamed him the late jigaboo. And he nicknamed me the uptight spear chucker. But it had to be that way, not because I like it, but because he just couldn't do no better. Never did. He never did any better than being late, being tardy. He's supposed to be there at 9. Negro shows up half past midnight telling you to wake up. No, ninja, I was on time. You late. Back then, we had the same first name. Got my African name now, as you know, but some of y'all would say that ain't African enough. But anyway, yeah, that's education. So when they start with all this, when sisters are bragging about this mess, you got to stop and remember what they're bragging about. Because number one, if it was us enrolled in more in university and college than them, they would say, well, who said it's a competition? Why are you always talking competitively? It ain't no competition. We your other half. That's what they would say. But when they beat us in the enrollment, not graduation or the GPAs or even the money they make afterwards, just in the enrollment, in the acceptance and accepting the acceptance into these institutions, guess what the hell they start doing? Well, we done surpassed y'all in this. So if they win, they surpassed us. But if we win, it's not a competition. And I want to thank the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Hurricane Edward Allen Anderson of that church with the long name, because he's the one that gave me the analytical thinking in words, not the thinking itself, but he's the one that put the analytical thinking skills that I had to have to go and graduate from Morehouse anyway into words so that I could articulate the key to unlock the locks and the acid to pour on the chains and dissolve them so that I could then think of, okay, wait a minute, I no longer have to settle for and tolerate this BS upon which the sistren rest, upon which they stand when they make their arguments. I no longer have to tolerate any of these double standards unless I get to bring in a double standard for us. No, this is one of the double standards they have that we no longer tolerate. If they surpass us in something, they won. But if we surpass them, it's not a competition in the first place. It's not a race. No, we got ahead of you. Say that. You out-enrolled us. Guess what? We still out-earned you, and we're not even paid as much. How do we out earn you when the job market is designed to not pay us as much? How does that happen? Because we work more. We have to. We have to do things on the side. We have to own things that we can lease or sell or sublet or things like that. We have to learn these other ways other than just labor to make it to where they would even consider us for anything, because otherwise we would never have it. And they're not doing what it takes to actually earn the same. What are they doing? Well, I didn't marry him for money, but I divorced him for that. That's part of what they're doing. Marrying so they can get alimony later, child support later. What else are they doing? They're showing a little leg or a little cleavage to get ahead. And if they have to, they'll just go ahead and spread the legs to get ahead, or duck a little sick to get ahead. But they do these things, and we don't necessarily, it's enough of them doing it to where we don't know who's not. It's enough of them doing this to where they have already cast doubt and aspersion on the women that are actually making it according to their own merit. But they got the nerve to raise their voice and talk about what they doing that we ain't, and talk about all the surpassing of us when it wasn't supposed to be a competition anyway, according to them. Imagine that. They tell you this ain't no competition. We partners. We in a race. Whichever one of us gets across first throws something back over the finish line to help the other ones. That's what we're sitting up thinking that it's going to be, because that's how they present it. And then they turn around and finish the race, and they look back and they say, well, you going to just let me win? Let you win? It's not a race. I mean, it's not a race between us. It's a race between them. And they got the nerve to sit up there and act like you are wrong if you don't go along with it. For me saying this, some of them don't like it because they know that's the mindset. We get ahead, we owe them. They get ahead, we owe them. I'm telling you, gentlemen. That's why it is that it's actually not a flex when they sit up and they say, oh, well, I represent more educational achievement. We done passed y'all up in terms of university. No. Did you actually graduate more than us? And if you already accepted more easily than us, then of course you'll have more of you enrolled, but did you actually graduate more than us? There's absolutely nothing that they should be able to say to us at this point that we would really take seriously. Because whenever they use masses measuring sticks or affectations or symbols of success in order to sun us, they don't think about the fact that they don't tolerate it if we were to use any of masses measuring sticks to do the same thing. We can't sit up and say, well, I got more money than you. They demand we have more money than them, but if we do, then they don't care. Why? Well, you know what? I don't care why they don't care. But what they're going to say is, well, it ain't nothing but his money anyway. It's got his presidents on it. It's got their signatures on it. They're the ones that actually print that money. It's theirs. You ain't doing nothing but slaving away to get they stuff. Well, guess what, sis? You ain't doing nothing but bowing and scraping to get a higher acceptance into their institutions of brainwashing. And so therefore, the fact that you are accepted and enrolled in theirs at a higher rate than us actually is a bad sign. But since you're going to ask, well, what about those of you that go at all? Then well, we could say, well, number one, we have to, according to you, we have to make it in life financially. But then the other thing is you prove that it is a bad sign because you are, in fact, the most brainwashed of the two of us. Hence what the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Hurricane Edward Allen Anderson has been saying. We actually just want to be treated fairly, even if we're black. You want to not be black and you can't stand us because you are. That is now self-evident at this point. Not even in spite of, but because of the educational brainwashing. I hope that this helps. Thank you for listening.
As always, black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum, black heterosexual, non-select male power because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. Thank you, as always, for flying with us here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jet black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.